This is Kimberly Quinn, host of the Mindcraft podcast, and I can't tell you how much fun I have had doing this podcast. I started when the world closed over the pandemic in an attempt to spread some positivity out there and give people some strategies to enhance their own well being and reduce anxiety and all of that. Now, 2 years later, we're still going strong and now listened to by 52 countries across the world. And I've even helped some of my students get going with their own podcasts. It's super easy to do. And I'll tell you, if you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it is the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. I'll just explain for you. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It is a ball. Start today. Greetings, Minecrafters, and welcome to another Minecraft discussion. My name is Kimberly Quinn, and I am here to help people become the boss of their brains, to really learn how to become the boss of your thoughts and control what comes in. Because after all, thoughts come first, followed by feelings, and then actions or behavior. So obviously, we put all that together, and it means that our thoughts literally dictate how we feel and behave, which means our thoughts dictate our everyday, our lives. And so today I want to talk about getting rid of your self-importance. You might think, oh, I'm not self-important. It's self-important. We all have a little splash of that in us at times, especially when someone nudges us in that direction, right? So in the last discussion, we were talking about our need to be right, and that can really be tough to fight that off. And we talked about Shenpa, which is, I believe it's Sanskrit, for that urge, that kind of volcanic eruption that comes up from our toes right up through our bodies like a thermometer in the July summer heat, just rising, rising, rising. We feel like we've got to react. We've got to react to what this person said, especially when they're legitimately wrong. You just read an article, hot off the press this morning, that's more updated than what they're saying, and you're right. So we're not saying that that person necessarily, that you're necessarily wrong. You could be totally right, but so it's the whole thing where we need to be right. That's what we're talking about, and so that also feeds into the need for self importance. So obviously, what we're talking about when we're talking about getting rid of self importance, it's about to continue with the habit of being aware of and slaying the ego, because that's what that is. Not just the need to be right, but the need to win. I'm saying that like in air quotes right now, because it might be in a situation in seasoned adulthood where it's at work and you have a need to outperform somebody or out. That is all ego related, that competition thing, the need to outdo, the need to be right, the need to come out on top, and none of it's authentic, because the authentic self is already fulfilled on her own or his own or their own. The authentic self feels whole and complete just walking around on this earth. Now, again, it doesn't mean that appreciation doesn't feel good, because of course it does. To be acknowledged, of course it feels good. The difference is the authentic self doesn't need to go looking for it. And when we are the authentic self, let me just start with this again. The need to be important also feeds into, the disease to please, which is codependent behavior. It doesn't mean it's not important to be a good person. Of course it is. And that said, there are many, 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 many people who have, out there have like convinced themselves that that's what it's about when they're out there being a rescue raft and, running themselves into the ground to please people, because it's not about being a good person. That's codependent behavior. It's 100% ego. That's an ego filler, quick fix. And getting this external approval and for doing all these things for everybody. And, oh, isn't she amazing? Isn't he amazing? they just did all this. How do they do it? They just baked for 6 consecutive holiday things or PTO things or whatever. Aren't they amazing? Oh, look, how did you manage to take all those kids to the baseball game? And again, is that a nice thing to do? Do we want to do nice things? Yes. However, that 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 people pleasing, disease to please behavior is 100% codependent, because that's about getting self-esteem from it, and that means it's inauthentic. It's just how it is. We know by how we feel. Mindful giving versus mindless giving. Mindful giving coming from the authentic self, who doesn't need appreciation, doesn't need admiration, doesn't need all these kudos and people saying what a great person they are. The authentic self doesn't need that. Again, does it feel good? Yeah, but she's not looking for it. He's not looking for it, and that's it. So the person who's running themselves on the ground, baking 4,000 cookies and doing all these great deeds, okay, so that's all good, all the great deeds, except for that, when it's about filling filling a hole in ourselves, that's that's coming from a that's just coming from a false place. It's coming from an inauthentic place. And that said, just like we talked about it before, when we reduce ourselves to a human doing, because we're lacking in some way and we're needing all this external devotion and admiration and attention, this also gets in the way, very much gets in the way of staying on our purpose, because we talked about that also in another episode. So hopefully this is all coming together here. We all have something that we're meant to do on this earth. We have our own unique something. Even with, I think we're close to 8 billion people now on the earth. Even with close to 8 billion spirits on this earth, we are all unique. I'm looking out the window at beautiful snow. Snowflakes sounds kind of cliche, but it's true. We are all unique in our own way. And we all have something that's meant just for us to do, to be our best Jonathan or our best Pedro or our best Melissa. We all have something we are meant to do. And when we get wrapped up and tempted by and seduced by the falsity of all the ego filling behavior, it gets us off track with what our authentic purpose really is. And that's the part that we really want to be aware of, because there is no better feeling in the world than being on track with our purpose. Especially I'm thinking right now, it's currently holiday time. There's lots of lots of materialism going on. That's not saying whether that's bad or good or whatever. Just saying, we think about it, and actually Wayne Dyer talks about this. When we come into this world with nothing, obviously, and we leave with nothing, also obvious. So the whole middle, which is our wonderful journey on this earth, is really about giving of ourselves. We come in with nothing, we leave with nothing. Therefore, the whole middle is about, just sharing of ourselves, giving of ourselves, giving of who we are, sharing our story, sharing our time, our life minutes. This is the best way, and this is um part of what it means to be on our authentic path and our purpose, because there's something inherently unique for each of us to give to the world and to share with other people. So, really, this comes down to mindful awareness. Remember that being mindful means being in the present. We don't have to be a Tibetan monk in a cave, palms up. Not that that's not a good thing. Of course, that's a good thing. It means about being in the present moment and being aware. So, when we're running ourselves ragged, doing this or that or the other thing, it's of utmost importance to question yourself in your head silently. No one else has to know unless you choose to share. Or maybe you're on a similar path with a friend, and then it's a great thing to share because you can grow together. And asking yourself, even if it's some seemingly from the outside looking in, some really good thing you're doing, and just ask yourself, what is my motivation? If I'm really, really honest, am I coming from this place of authentically giving where my cup runneth over and I feel recharged and rejuvenated by doing this authentically? Or am I coming from a place of being self-important and getting my self-worth out of being a human doing and doing whatever, and then going to tell people I just did this and that and this and that and baked for this and donated that, because one is mindful giving and is authentic, and the other is 100% ego, even if it looks great on the outside. And it's just really, really important to get in sync, because the more we are tempted and seduced and cave into the ego, the more that really veers us off the path of authenticity. Very much so. Remember that the ego is the evil twin of your authentic self. And we can give and do all these wonderful things, especially at the holiday season. But the other 11 months and a half months of the year too. We can do all these good things, and even in a better way when it's in sync with, when we're lined up with our personality and the source or creator of all things, whatever you want to say. When we are really, really, really sticking with our purpose and staying with our purpose. And we talked about it, like just like anything else, it takes a lot of practice because the ego stuff is seductive. So we may need to remind ourselves in each situation. It can be hard because, we get a real fix out of being right and judging and stuff. We just do. And also running around with people saying all kinds of good things because we just, did this, that, this, and this. And just to remind ourselves that we don't need to be right. Okay, that's falsity. It's just the ego. We don't need to come out on top. We don't need to outdo people. We don't need to run ourselves into the ground to prove to ourselves, mainly in the world, that we're a good person, that we are enough exactly as we are, and we can give authentically once we reside in that place of value and living our own truth. And that to try to steer ourselves back, bring the authentic self back into the driver's seat, and be that amazing human being rather than a self-important human doing. Excellent. This is Kimberly Quinn signing off from the beautiful northern Vermont. Have a mindful, very authentic day.